2 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 inoperable pancreatic cancer.
Against the odds, I'm still here.
In those dark days, I searched for survivor stories and came across Joe Tippens, a stage 4 lung cancer patient who incredibly sent his disease into remission using a dog dewormer drug.
Last time I shared Joe's story and my Fenben experience, including fears it spread my cancer to my liver. In this video, I'll dive deeper into my blood results from the time to see if there's any evidence for this, and look closer at how Fenbendazole works, its side effects, and the research specifically on pancreatic cancer, and how it has worked for some people like Noel Watson. I spent quite a lot of time researching how Fenbendazole works, and I thought I'd take a few minutes to summarise what I learnt. Fenbendazole works mainly through its action on tubulin. Microtubules or tubulin is everywhere in your body. There's even a cool theory that microtubules or tubulin is actually responsible for consciousness and drives quantum theory. But back to how tubulin's present in your body. 2 cells of tubulin, an A and a B cell, stick together to make a heterodimer, and more stick together to make chains of protofilaments. And 13 protofilaments stick together to make a tube called a microtubule. Maybe this picture is clearer. Microtubules are essential in the process of cell division because they form the ropes that pull the chromosomes apart. Later, you'll see they're also critical in the operation of metabolic pathways, as they form the track to move materials around the body. Fenben's first action against cancer is to destabilise tubulin to prevent heterodimers from connecting together to make the protofilaments, and this prevents cell division. This is important as any cell, whether it's a normal cell or a cancer cell, needs these protofilament ropes to be able to divide. Researchers have known this for years. Traditional chemotherapy drugs derived from periwinkle, vinca alkaloids, or pine trees, which give the taxanes, use the same method of action at different binding sites on the heterodimers or the microtubules. When a cell which was trying to divide is prevented, as the rope or protofilament doesn't operate correctly, it stops cell division and triggers apoptosis and death of the cell. Just like this process is necessary for rapidly dividing cells such as parasites or the worms in animals for which Fenbendazole was licensed, it's necessary for cancer to replicate, and is one reason why Fenbendazole and some chemotherapy drugs are successful against cancer cells. The second way Fenbendazole has been identified to act against cancer is through its action on p53. p53 is a protein which can be found in the nucleus of cells. p53 acts as a tumour suppressor, which means that in normal cells it regulates cell division by identifying cells which are growing and dividing or proliferating too fast or in an uncontrolled way, and initiating their destruction. In cancer, the p53 protein is often missing, and in half of all cancers, the gene which provides the instruction to produce it, TP53, is mutated. The results of my circulating DNA test revealed that I also have the TP53 gene. The p53 signalling pathway is disrupted in the other half of cancers. p53 travels around the body along tracks of microtubules, which, remember, are made of tubulin protofilaments, to the centre of a nucleus with DNA damage, such as a cancer cell. Low-dose Fenbendazole facilitates p53 protein reaching cancer cell nucleuses. The research shows that as the dose of Fenbendazole is increased, this effect on p53 diminishes. And it isn't unique to Fenbendazole. Chemotherapy, which is invariably given at high doses, generally prevents this p53 effect from taking place, as the microtubules are destroyed or unable to be built. But low-dose chemotherapy also facilitates p53 getting to the cancer nucleuses, just like low-dose Fenben. This appears to be because whether tubulin's slightly bound or depolymerised, the microtubule network's still intact and p53 operation is enhanced, as well as its target gene, MDM2. When the microtubules are hyperstabilised or depolymerised, the p53 networks also struck out. This aligns well with what Jane McClelland and others who've advocated preferring low-dose chemotherapy have said. p53 is so important because it promotes pro-apoptic cell death functions within cancer cells to initiate programmed cell death. So the second helpful thing Fenbendazole does at low doses is help increase p53 levels.
The third way Fenben has an action against cancer is through metabolic pathways. Understanding metabolic pathways is critical to understanding cancer. The way I think of it is that a metabolic pathway is like a train track within your body which enables proteins or genes or other material to be moved around. Tubulin's a key ingredient, but there are lots of different types of A and B tubulin, and so lots of different heterodimers. Microtubules of specific heterodimers are arranged together to form pathways to transport specific proteins or cells around the body. Cancer cells need much more energy than normal cells in the form of, for example, glucose or glutamate. Certain of these metabolic pathways, or ways that cancer feeds itself, can be disrupted by fenbendazole to inhibit the cancer cells from feeding. Research has documented fenbendazole regulating glucose transporters like GLUT4 and STAT3 and NF-κB, which stands for nuclear factor kappa beta, I think, HK2, and other glutamate pathways such as glutaminolysis and proline oxidase, fueling tumour growth, essentially starving the cancer of energy.
Additionally, fenbendazole appears to reduce tumour formation and cancer cell colony growth through unknown mechanisms. I suspect these are related to p53 and tubulin. So let's look at the side effects. While fenbendazole seems to selectively target cancer cells over healthy cells, it can still impact some rapidly dividing populations. Joe believes that the only side effect is diarrhoea for 10% of people. If you have cancer, one hallmark is usually you have something wrong with your poo. So if this is a side effect, you might not notice a difference. I think diarrhoea could also be a sign fenbendazole's working, as it could be the drug working to eliminate parasites or other things which shouldn't be there. Joe Tippens' Facebook group often claims that there are no side effects with fenbendazole, and you might not notice any. However, just like the chemotherapy drugs to which Fenben is similar, it can also have serious side effects, despite its promising anti-cancer properties. While cancer cells may be particularly vulnerable due to their rapid division and metabolism, animal studies show that fenbendazole can also affect normal cells that are rapidly dividing. Most people trying fenbendazole will be worried about beating cancer rather than affecting the rapidly dividing cells linked to fertility. But fenbendazole has been linked to altered fertility in some animals, likely due to its impact on rapidly dividing germ cells. It increased the fertility of female baboons who were struggling to conceive, but decreased the fertility of male turkeys. The effects of fenbendazole mean that comprehensive monitoring is crucial to manage the potential side effects. It's advisable to exercise caution when considering fenbendazole if you're pregnant or trying to conceive,
Or if you're young and still growing.
Fenbendazole has also been documented to cause myelosuppression in animals, which is the suppression of the immune system by depleting, rapidly dividing, bone marrow stem cells responsible for producing blood cells.
This can lead to a condition called hyperplasia, where there's a low count of cells in your bone marrow, often resulting in reduced white blood cell and red blood cell counts. I noticed myelosuppression was also raised in Joe's Facebook group from time to time. I suffered from neutropenic sepsis. For this video, I've looked back on my haemoglobin levels before and after starting Fenbendazole on the 14th of June 2022. Prior to Fenbendazole, my levels were around 124 to 139. Immediately after starting, they dropped to anemic levels and then recovered. The first drop occurred before I began my chemotherapy in mid-July, which also caused further declines. The graph indicates that in my case, both Fenbendazole and also chemo seem to cause myelosuppression. Notably, in my case, Fenbendazole's effect preceded chemo.
Given I was doing a combination of Fenben and chemo, I'm so glad I was getting my bloods monitored as often as I was.
Based on rat studies, Fenbendazole can remain in your system for 3 to 4 weeks and potentially longer in younger individuals. In hindsight, spacing out Fenbendazole and chemo treatments might have been safer and might have helped me avoid neutropenic sepsis. Since Fenbendazole is not licensed for human use, there's a lack of information regarding its potential drug interactions, leaving us navigating uncharted territory if we choose to take it. The effect on the liver is something I
Did believe
I experienced and is reported a lot in the Facebook group. I'm unusual and fortunate in how many blood tests I had done while I was seriously ill. About 50 blood tests during diagnosis and my first 2 chemos and recovery. I've made a chart of my liver enzyme data to see if there's any evidence my liver was impacted. You can see that when I was first ill, my first blood results showed very high liver enzymes. This was due to the cancer, I believe. They normalised again. You can see my liver enzymes spike up again in early June. Per my first video, I initially thought this was the Fenbendazole, but now I think it was the result of my first biopsy on the 7th of June 2022. I can see from the blood test that my liver enzymes are fine on the 6th of June 2022 at 18, but then elevated on the 8th of June 2022 at 42, which was several days before I started the Fenbendazole on the 14th of June 2022, but just after the biopsy. I wasn't on anything at this point, so I can't see a reason why my liver markers were elevated other than the biopsy. My liver markers spike up again for a third time on or around the 6th of August 2022. I don't have an explanation for this right now. Possibly the cancer attempting to make a resurgence, as I'd had to cut back on all pills around this time due to my very low blood pressure. I then went into my second chemo and my liver markers then come down for a prolonged period. There is another spike at the end of October, but I can't work out what this is attributable to right now. So for me, having carefully reviewed, there is no evidence of Fenbendazole materially affecting my liver enzymes or liver. I also now think that the liver metastases were attributable to the cells spread by the 2 biopsies rather than Fenbendazole. However, just because I didn't have them, this is not to say that liver side effects could not be possible. Fenbendazole has been shown in animals to impact certain cytochrome P450 enzymes, which are responsible for metabolising many drugs in the liver. And there are a lot of reports of Fenbendazole affecting the liver in the Facebook group.
This means that if you take Fenbendazole along with other medications that rely on those same enzymes for their breakdown and removal from the liver, the levels and effects of those other medications could change. This could potentially cause issues or side effects. As far as possible, I prefer to put up with the pain than take painkillers. And this was lucky, as paracetamol, aka acetaminophen, or Tylenol, is one common painkiller that does rely on these enzymes. A study on mice revealed a staggering 63% mortality rate in the group receiving high doses of paracetamol and Fenbendazole together. Definitely glad I happened to avoid taking paracetamol and Fenbendazole together. The wisdom in the Facebook group recommends taking a liver protectant like milk thistle alongside Fenbendazole in any event to protect the liver. Moreover, some of the enzymes which Fenbendazole upregulates can metabolize procarcinogens, which may explain unusual cases of hyperprogression observed in mice with lymphoma using Fenbendazole. This was what I was worried I'd triggered, though this actually wasn't true in my case. The same research suggests that Fenbendazole works more effectively when combined with vitamins and other metabolic components rather than as a standalone treatment. This makes sense if cancer does feed via metabolic pathways and that cancer cells can switch metabolic pathways, and that Fenbendazole blocks only a few of these pathways. By following Jane McClellan's logic, blocking multiple pathways simultaneously through a multi-pronged approach, such as done here in the lymphoma mice research by inadvertently adding vitamin pills alongside Fenbendazole, could potentially elicit a stronger response against the cancer. Incorporating specific vitamin supplements and other targeted treatments alongside Fenbendazole makes theoretical sense, rather than doing it as a standalone treatment. And that's reflected in Joe Tippens' evolving protocol, which now recommends the use of Ultra Botanica products alongside Fenbendazole. While Joe's documented Fenbendazole working across many cancer types, the results vary. Joe refers to it as cancer agnostic, which means it works for all types of cancers, but it's important to notice it works much better for some cancers than for others. The evidence from animal studies suggests that Fenbendazole works particularly well for non-small cell and small cell lung cancers like Joe's cancer and glioblastoma, which was the original Merck researchers' cancer. Anecdotally, it also appears to be very effective for prostate cancer. However, Fenbendazole does not seem to work as well for more complex cancers like triple-negative breast cancer or pancreatic cancer, especially at Joe's usual protocol doses. Joe has a few success stories for these, usually after much longer periods of time trying, such as 18 months or 2 years, and at higher doses, but there are a handful of cases compared to the seemingly large number of patients who have tried. If we look at some of the published research on this, one research study on anti-helminths compared the effect of different wormers on 2 different samples of pancreatic cancer cells. Mebendazole, the drug licensed for humans against pinworm, actually worsened cancer for both pancreatic cell lines in standard doses. So I'm glad I avoided this for my pancreatic cancer and didn't try it. It's often prescribed as part of the Care Oncology Clinic protocol, but Mebendazole and Fenbendazole are not the same. Parbendazole, a chicken wormer, which was discontinued in the 1960s, was the most effective against pancreatic cancer. I tried to get it due to my activities as a chicken farmer, but failed because I was not able to get through compliance without a VAT number. I used Fenbendazole instead, as it was possible to get hold of this. I managed to get the Merck Panacure product for my worm-prone 60kg Vizsla Bruno from an online pet pharmacy and needed a repeat prescription. I took the Fenbendazole. I explained how this went for me and why I stopped in the prior video. In the study on pancreatic cancer cells, lower Fenbendazole doses of 222mg showed no effect, while 500mg hinted at minor benefits. Joe, in June 2024, cited 10 pancreatic cancer cases where Fenbendazole helped, with 2 achieving no evidence of disease status after having taken Fenben for 18 to 20 months. But these are small numbers out of potentially hundreds or thousands of cases. I'm not sure how well it works for me. My cancer did reduce during the time I took it, but I was doing a lot of other things as well. And while having really looked hard at my blood tests, I don't hold it responsible for my liver metastases any longer. I do think it played a key role in tipping me into neutropenic sepsis, and that really did nearly kill me. But I'm open-minded. Noel Watson's stage 4 pancreatic cancer case illustrates the potential benefits and also limitations of Parbendazole for pancreatic cancer. Noel had a tumour which was diagnosed at stage 4, though fortunately he's never had distant metastases. Initially, his tumour grew to 10.4 centimetres after chemotherapy, but after adding 2 grams of Parbendazole per day alongside chemotherapy and switching to a vegan diet, his tumour shrank to 6 centimetres, then 2.5 centimetres over the following months. However, when chemotherapy was paused, the tumour grew back to 3.5 centimetres, i.e. the Parbendazole wasn't enough on its own. Noel then modified his alternative protocol, and his tumours remained stable for the past 4 years while continuing to take Parbendazole plus other off-labels and other supplements. You can find Noel on Facebook. I note Noel was not always buying genuine Merck products, so it may be, as Joe Tippens found when he tested them, that other suppliers provide a different and less potent version. I'm very glad I only ever bought genuine Merck products. Thanks, Bruno. In summary, while it seems that Parbendazole can act as an anti-cancer agent through mechanisms like tubulin disruption and metabolic inhibition, I learnt the hard way why caution's advised due to potential side effects and drug interactions. Remember, it's not licensed for humans, so when I tried it, I had to own all the risk myself. The anecdotal evidence of Joe Tippens and other survivors is powerful testimony that it has an effect on cancer, but still it's unpredictable and it won't work for everyone. That's what I found, and that's why I stopped taking it for my inoperable metastatic pancreatic cancer. But I can also see how well it's worked for others like Noel. While Noel's cancer hasn't gone, it is stable, and against pancreatic, that is already a big win. But Parbendazole wasn't enough on its own. When it started growing again, he only managed to halt it with additional off-label drugs. So that combination was crucial. I think I'm done covering my experience with Parbendazole for the moment. If you do decide to give it a try, please follow Joe's advice and only buy genuine Merck products. Watch his Q&A videos. Heed the investigations he has done into the product supplied via random Facebook groups and the lesser levels of purity identified in non-Merck products. Pharbendazole's become big business, so make sure you're not scammed. Joe Tippens does not sell Parbendazole himself. I like knowing more about unconventional approaches to cancer, hearing your success stories, and I love reading the comments. If you'd like to follow my unconventional journey against stage 4 pancreatic cancer, please click subscribe. Please don't worry about me dying in between video releases, and if you are concerned, you can follow me on social media. Until next time, bye!